Chapter 14. Possum. Feeling like a lamb being led to the slaughter, I enter the building where the superintendent is waiting. He's sitting at a square oak table, that mild smile on his long face. To my surprise, Morell's not alone. There's an Indian boy with him. He looks to be about my age, maybe 12 or 13. Taller, though, and a good bit skinnier. To my further surprise, he's someone I recognize. Even though he's now in bib overalls and black sneakers rather than an army-style uniform and boots, I've noticed the scar on his sun-browned face. It's the boy who was 2 rows back from the front. The one who winked at me. "Charles Aird," Superintendent Morell says, pointing his finger like a gun at the boy's chest. Then he points back at me. "You will be in his class." He swings his mile-long finger back in the scarred boy's direction. "Mr. Aird, this is Calvin Blackbird. You will show him about. Make certain he is properly prepared for tomorrow." Charles Aird replies with a nod of his head. "Yes, sir," he says, clicking his heels together. "Superintendent, sir, at your command, sir." His face is dead serious. Somehow, though, the way he said those few words was almost as funny as if he'd just cracked a joke. Superintendent Morell shakes his head. "None of your tomfoolery, Ed. Just do as you are told." "Yes, sir, even if it means I die trying." "The boy thinks himself amusing," Morell says. "Still, he is reliable." He turns to Charles Aird and his voice takes on a firmer tone of command. "Now, take our new recruit about. The infirmary first." "Yes, sir, Superintendent, sir," Charles Aird says. Then, as the superintendent looks down to take another mint from his pocket, Aird leans his head close to mine to whisper one word. "Ouch." I look at my father. "Go ahead, Cal," Pop says. "It'll take me a bit to fill out the forms. I'll see you before I go." Before I go. Those 3 words hit like arrows shot into my chest, but I don't let it show. I just nod. I'm steered out the door by Charles Aird. Halfway down the steps, he turns and says something to me. I do not understand a word. He says it again. Once again, it makes no sense. I just look at him. He says. "Looking the way you do, I thought you might talk it. Your pappy never taught you?" I still don't understand. "Indian," Charles Aird says. "You never learned to speak Indian?" Oh. Should I tell him until only a day ago I never even knew Pop was Indian? How can I explain that to him when I don't really understand it myself? So I just keep my answer simple. "No," I say. Charles Aird nods. "Okay," he says. "Lots here never got taught nothing but English, especially if their folks went here. Even some who look as Creek as you do." I follow him down the steps. At the bottom, he jerks his chin off to the left. "Come on," he says. "This way." I look in that direction. There's another slightly smaller building, 100 yards away. It's not built of stone like the one we just left. It's wood, painted white as snow. "Building 4, Charles Aird says. Scalping shop. Infirmary's in there, too. First stop." He lifts his right hand, opens and closes index and middle fingers. "Snip, snip. No barber today. But nurse'll do as good a job of chopping off that long hair of yours." He runs his palm back over his own closely cropped head. "Can't have none of us looking like wild Indians and scaring the teachers." His short laugh is more like a snort. "Ready to get shaved like a sheep?" He studies my face as he says that, looking to see if I show any signs of anxiety about being shorn like Samson in the Bible story. I knew this was going to happen, but now that time is almost here, that gunshot pain is back. However, I keep my face impassive and merely nod. "Talkative, ain't you?" Charles Aird says with a chuckle. He starts walking, me half a step behind. We don't go far before he looks back over his right shoulder. "Cal," he says. "That what your old man called you?" I nod my head. "Well, you might have heard my name back there as Charles Aird, right?" I nod again. "Okay, but that's not what any of the teachers call me. Possum. That's my moniker. Possum." He stops dead in his tracks, spins on his heel, and favors me with a grin so big it about splits his face. It does sort of look like a possum's wide, tooth-bearing smile. I almost laugh. Charles, Possum that is, raises an eyebrow, still waiting for a reaction. He doesn't get one from me. I just stand there looking down at the ground. "Jeez, I'm a crow," he says, letting go of that grin. He starts walking again. I follow behind like a condemned man, being led to the gallows. "Cal," Possum says to himself. He presses his lips together and shakes his head. "Nope, that don't sound right. Jaybird's more like it, seeing as how jays are always squawking, just like you." He turns again to make a face at me. "Man, can't get a word in edgewise with you around, can he, Jay?" This time I can't keep a smile from curling up my lips. It's not just that it's funny in an ironic way, like giving a giant the nickname of Tiny. It's how he says it, the way he keeps changing the expression on his rubbery face. Plus, I've always, like Pop, had a special fondness for birds. "Okay," Possum chuckles, "so that face of yours ain't made of granite after all, even if I do have to keep up both ends of this conversation. My grandpa, Big Rabbit, he claimed the best way to get a man to talk was to say nothing. I reckon he would have liked you, Jaybird. You be living proof." We've now reached Building 4. 4 good-sized elm trees grow up in front of it. There are only 8 steps here, nowhere near as steep as those of Building 1, but they're still long and wide enough to seat a small army. Doing things on a grand scale seems to be the rule at this place. Before it was closed down, the folks of the Kansas County, where Pop and I had our farm, were mighty proud of their 4-room school. It was so much larger than the 1-room schoolhouses in the adjoining counties. But every building I have seen thus far at Chilagi makes my old place of learning look like a hen house in comparison. Possum cocks his head to squint up at the steps, at the big double doors. "111 of us in here," he says. "You will make it an even 112. But first, you gotta get mowed and pincushioned." He points his lips at a normal-sized door set to the left of the steps on the ground level. The word infirmary is printed in black letters above it. "Yep," Possum says, that big grin on his face again. "As many inoculations as any man could want, all free of charge." He plucks my shirt sleeve. "Nurse'll be waiting. Old man Morrell sent her to get ready." He gives me a gentle shove. "Go right on in. I'll be waiting till she's done with you." I look at my pack. Possum took it from me as we started our walk. It's slung over his shoulder. He nods. "It'll be safe with me, Jay. You can trust me." The joking tone that's been in his voice since we met is gone, and somehow I know 2 things. First, that I can trust him, and second, that I've already found a friend. Possum grins. "Don't keep her waiting too long, or she just might make it worse for you." I grasp the door handle, turn it, and try to pull the door open. I pull harder. Nothing happens. Possum reaches a hand past me to tap his index finger on the word written right in front of my face on the door. "Push." Possum chuckles. Then he pats me on the shoulder. "Won't be that bad," he says. "Go on." I push the door open and step inside.